Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. How do we know that the Jews who are arguing that the Jews are chosen and should magically be above everyone else no matter what are wrong? Well, Psalm 9:16 and Isaiah 5:16 by themselves make it very clear. The Lord is known by his acts of justice. The Lord is exalted. He's proved holy by his righteous and just acts. Now, what does this mean, right? Because obviously God is holy, he's righteous no matter what. Well, there's different ways to look at it, but they all must be within the boundaries of truth. How we know that God has done something and not mere people has to do with how righteous and just it is, universally speaking. When Noah came into contact with God, he knew it was God because God was righteous and just, and his plan was righteous and just. Same with Abraham. Same with David. They knew because God does things that are clearly universally fair. We see the prophets in the Old Testament trying to explain things to people. They're using reason. The reason why the people are listening to them in the first place, to whatever degree they are, is because they've proven that their arguments are sound using righteousness and justice in a universal way. Remember, the Jews weren't always Jews, right? The people who came before them didn't know what to think. And then God came to them in a way that was righteous and just. So how did the Gentiles know that the God of the few Jews who were telling the truth about God in all of history is actually God and not an idol? Well, the same way Noah and Abraham and David knew. Because God is proved holy. He's proved to be God with righteousness and justice. That's what Psalm 9:16 is telling us. That's what Isaiah 5:16 is telling us. So all interpretations must be within the boundaries of universal righteousness and justice. That's how God proves it. So when I won the debate, I pointed out that, hey, the people who are much more noble than that person's side of the debate have righteous acts like me. My top martial arts challenge, my videos, the way I've moved as a righteous person through persecution, and many others. But the people on their side of the debate, they hoard money. They're highly political. They're controlled opposition. They're not really persecuted. When they are, it's some kind of gimmick. And it's very easy to see that. Very easy. So again, how do the Gentiles know who's telling the truth? Well, how did the Jews in the story? There was false prophets in the story. And they're saying, he's wrong. And the true prophets say, no, I'm right. How do they know who's who? I'm not going to cite the New Testament in this one. I'll do that in the next video if I make another video about this. Because in the New Testament, they put it in a way that's more straightforward than in the Old Testament. But you can still ascertain the same answer here. You see, you know in the first place because God does things that are righteous and just. Is it righteous and just to say to the Jews alone, I have a covenant with you? After all the evil they did up to that point, all the evil they would do in the future, and God knew that it was coming, and that covenant is going to stand no matter what? Basically, no. Let me tell you why. Because if you don't earn that right, then it's not righteous and just to just randomly choose a people. And God doesn't just do things on a whim or do things in a way that's mysterious. He does things in a way that's universally fair. We see that in Ezekiel, where God says he speaks to people through false idols as well, okay, for various reasons. So we see that he says it to everybody, one way or another, that he has a covenant with them, whether he's talking through a false idol or otherwise. So every nation and every person on the planet had a covenant with God that if they scramble to do what's right and they rise above everyone else, that they will be established. That's what the covenant is saying. Jeremiah 31, it says they broke the covenant. How do you reconcile that with Leviticus 26? Well, you have to see that God is speaking to everybody in every nation, and he's speaking to those righteous few who are going to make it to heaven, and they're the offspring of the covenant, the essence of the covenant. The offspring of Israel are superimposed on the righteous. Both covenants are with the righteous.